At that meeting, we have right now scheduled the second hearing for the ordinance to increase the transient lodging tax. We had the first one a couple weeks ago. The second reading is scheduled for next week. There's been a lot of conversations at the staff level about the best path forward, as the legislature is obviously talking a lot about TLT right now. And so what staff will be suggesting next week is that we continue that second hearing until July, so we can see what happens during the legislative session. And at that point, depending on if nothing happens or if something happens or if, adequate actions happen, we'll come back to your board at that time with the recommendation to move the ordinance forward, to amend the ordinance. And so that's what staff has been discussing. So I just wanted to let your board know that we will be ready to move forward, but there is a lot of conversations right now with the legislature about the TLT, which is a good thing, but we're not sure where it's going to land. So we are going to be prepared. I think having the ordinance out there puts some pressure on everybody to know that, the county is serious about doing something. But at the same time allows the legislative process to take its course. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, thank you, County Manager. I think that's the prudent course of action, and I understand that Representative Javity has been sponsoring one of those proposals that would give flexibility to that 70% that's now going towards tourism-related advertising, and that would actually allow for public safety to also be included within that 70%. That would be fantastic. That's what we're looking for. And at the same time, not knowing what the result of this is going to be, I think we need to be prepared to take action at the conclusion of the session if we don't achieve some flexibility in that funding. Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To remind my colleagues, I'm co-chair of the AOC Governance and Revenue Committee. This item is on our agenda. So what I'd hope we can do is be in close communication about the TLT so that everyone is working most constructively and effectively together. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Any other comments at this time? Okay. And I see, Commissioner Wakua has joined us as well. We were just discussing about the next week's meeting to continue the public hearing on the TLT till after the legislative session is over, to see exactly what happens at the legislative session, see if we do get any relief from the existing makeup of that 70-30 split with TLT taxes. And so that's what we're going to move forward on. Any other comments on the agenda? All right, we'll move on then to our next item, which is the fiscal year 2023-2024 annual audit presentation on page 3. And Andrew Sullivan, our finance director. Andrew.
Thank you, Chair Quila. Good morning, commissioners. This is always an interesting time of year where we're operating in the fiscal year 24-25. We're starting to address our budget planning for 25-26, but we are reviewing the recently finalized audit for fiscal year 23-24. So I always have to kind of remind myself what fiscal year we're addressing. So this morning we have Debbie Blasquez here joining us from the accounting firm Kuntz Blasquez and Associates, who oversaw and conducted the annual audit for Clatsop County for fiscal year 23-24. Just as a reminder, I am solely not responsible for the successful completion of the annual audit. All staff play a role, and I want to thank our county leadership, the budget and finance team, as well as all the county staff who helped gather information and answer questions all throughout the process. So I certainly appreciate everyone's help and efforts. And with that, I'll hand it over to Debbie to provide your board with the annual audit report and results. Debbie.
Hi, thank you for having me. And I want to echo what Andy said about everybody in the finance and budget department, from Andy all the way down to the accounting clerks that you have working for you. They all play a big part, as does Andy and Sandy both, in getting us all the information on such a timely basis. I think you all have everything in front of you or have access to it. This is my usual spiel every year. If there's something particular that you want me to key on, please let me know. I usually start with the fact that we submit to you 2 letters in addition to the audit report. The first letter, which is a thicker one, has to do, this is the communication with those charged in governance. This just lets you know what our responsibilities are, what your responsibilities are. If there were any difficulties during the audit or anything else that might have come up, obviously we didn't have any issues while we were there. The second letter is the communication of internal control related items. You'll notice it's pretty thin. We only had just one thing. There's an interfund loan that just wasn't on the books, which we've rectified, and we've worked with Andy to make sure that that's on there, and we'll be watching that from now on, and making sure that as you are making transactions back and forth within it, that it's being accounted for and presented properly. When you get, the next is the big book. And I'm sure most of you are looking at electronically. I have a big paper copy in front of me. It's quite large, so I'm just going to kind of go through the sections of the report and let you know what you can find in each of those sections. It starts with the table of contents. When you get to the little letter I, this is the transmittal letter that Andy wrote, which is a synopsis of all the key matters with regards to the county, from the county perspective. After that, when you get to page 2, this is our auditor's report letter, which was an unqualified opinion, which is a good thing. It's 3 or 4 pages long. The next big section that I think most people would probably want to look at starts on page 5. It's what we call the management discussion and analysis, or the MD&A. This kind of gives you a quick snapshot of key information within the report, both at the government-wide statement and at the governmental fund statements. It explains the difference between the two. It gives a recap of some of the key financial information and some budgetary highlights. As you move further back, you get into the actual report itself. Starting on page 15, you'll have the government-wide statements. And these are the statements that are prepared as if you were a for-profit business. So you have all of your liabilities, all of your fixed assets, and that sort of thing included in those statements. As you move further back into the report, on page 18 and 19, you get to what's called the governmental fund statement. This presents your general fund, and then your major special revenue funds, and then the non-major governmental funds at the fund level, which is probably more what you're used to seeing on a monthly basis. As you move further back on page 24, you have the proprietary fund, which is your Westport sewer, and that will show you all of your assets and income and such from there. Then, as you move further back, you get to the notes of the financial statement, which start on page 30. These notes basically will give you the information and explanation for everything in front of it. So, for instance, fixed assets, you'll find a note in here about fixed assets. It'll show you the breakout between what is capitalized, what depreciation is, and those sorts of things. It also talks about pension information. It talks about upcoming new changes to financial reporting that we have to be adhering to in the coming years. It's a good informational, another one of those areas that I think that if you don't want to read through the entire report, the notes are another good place to be. After that, you get to what's considered to be the required supplementary information, which starts on page 75. This is mostly some pension disclosures that are now required. and then also your budget to actual information for your general fund and your major special revenue funds. As you continue to move back, you're going to find what's considered to be other supplementary information. That will be your combining statement, which combines all your special revenue funds that makes up that one column. And then also we'll give you your budget to actual information for all of your other funds that were not included in the required supplementary information earlier. Page 128 is just some information with regards to your property tax transactions for the year, and also some information on future requirements for the retirement of your long-term debt. And then you get to your statistical section, which starts on page 131. This is all information that's compiled by Andy and with the help of his staff. And this is just key information that has always been in your report that we just update every year. Then on page, let's see, page 153, you get to what's considered the Oregon Minimum Standards Report. These are just items that we're required to test as part of the municipal audit for the Secretary of State, and this is just our opinion on that. And then you lastly move into your single audit sections, which is just basically, we produce a schedule that shows all your expenditures of your federal awards and then which ones we tested as considered to be the major programs, and then some selected notes and the required reports for that as well. And there were no findings in your single audit. So that pretty much is, in a very quick manner, the synopsis of what your report is. And I'm not sure, do you have questions, or is there something else you want me to talk about?
Okay, raise your hand if you have a question for Debbie. I'm not seeing any.
Okay.
And again, we really appreciate your hard work, and this has been a great review. We've always appreciated your diligence and working with our finance team to complete these audits each year. And Andrew, thank you for all of your team's effort to put this together.
No, thank you, Chair. And again, I want to just extend my appreciation to Debbie and her team. I always kind of, in some weird way, look forward to the audits. It's a great measure of making sure that we're up to speed with our policies, protocols, and we're doing everything the right way. So that she's great to work with.
Oh, well, thanks. We enjoy working with you too. And like I said, I have said in the past, my staff always likes to fight to see who gets to come on the audit. So
That's great.
No, that's high praise. That's great. Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Debbie.
you're welcome. You guys have a safe day.
Thanks. And you too.
Okay. Bye-bye.
We'll move on to the next item, which is the appointments to Recreational Lands Planning and Advisory Committee on page 5. And Steve Meschke, our Natural Resources Manager. Hi, Steve.
Hello, Larry. Can you guys hear me okay?
Sure can.
Okay. So we currently have one position open on our committee. It opened February 1st, and we received 2 applications. One of them is Michael Hinton, the current member that his term expired, and he's asking to be reappointed. And also we received a new one from Tyler Lingstad, and he works for the city of Astoria Parks. Both great people. Mike's been with us for like 15 years now. Was part of the Parks Master Plan back in 2006, and he's been with the committee for a long time. Tyler, we've been trying to catch up with him on the phone. Last we spoke with him briefly, he said he was still interested in the position, but I wanted to talk to him a little bit more about it before today. But it sounds like he's still interested in working for us, for the committee. It would be kind of nice to have a fresh face on the committee. I know Mike's been here a long time. I don't want to throw him under the bus or anything, but it's just he's been a great member, but maybe it's time to try someone new. Not sure if you guys have any thoughts on that. And that's all I have for you, unless you got questions for me.
Well, thanks, Steve. Yeah, and it looks like Michael's really enjoyed his time on the committee. He's representing District 5, and I see that Tyler is actually District 3, and we have someone in District 3 already, correct?
Right. Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I was questioning the same thing, how that works.
Yeah, and it's, I think we've always tried to do that, but at times we don't have the correct membership anyway, or we don't have applicants. So we have allowed that to happen before because we just don't have enough applicants for it. So that is a good point, though. I mean, we do have someone from each district if we appoint Michael again.
Okay. I see Commissioner Thompson and then Commissioner Webb. Commissioner Thompson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, yeah, we do have somebody from District 5, an experienced, willing member. So I would be opposed to replacing a District 5 representative with another one from District 3 with no disrespect. I mean, he sounds like a wonderful person to be working with. I'd encourage the committee to work with him, but I think the seat on this committee belongs to the District 5 reappointment candidate in my book. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Commissioner Webb?
Yeah, thank you. One of the things that has been great about Mike Hinton's service on the committee is that he's very involved in Seaside's Parks and Rec. And so he keeps us informed about what's going on there, et cetera. I'm wondering if, especially as we look forward to doing the Parks Master Plan, hopefully in the next fiscal year, that it would be wonderful to have somebody with the other candidates role with the city of Astoria. And I'm wondering if it wouldn't be possible for us to expand the membership on the committee in order to accommodate him, because we don't really have anybody. We haven't had anybody. Steve, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't remember in recent years having anybody who's real familiar with what goes on in the north part of the county in terms of recreation. And I think that Astoria has probably the most vigorous program, although Seaside does also. So it would be wonderful if we could get someone like this. He's also, I'm the liaison to this committee, so I'm pretty familiar with them. But we're also a lot of old bears on this committee, and so we have somebody who's young and interested and is kind of a pro at this. So I wonder if it would be possible for us to expand the membership of the committee and include both of these applicants. I don't know who I'm asking this question to.
Well, Chair,
Still-
Creel, members of the board, if I might, what I would suggest, because I think we would need to go back and take a look at the charter bylaws for this group to make sure that we would amend those to allow that first. What I would suggest, if your board is comfortable, is to go ahead and forward a name for the next board meeting as a replacement. And in the meantime, we will look at the bylaws and see what would need to be done to make that occur. And then we can circle back with an additional appointment if that's the will of the board.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner Webb. Thank you, County Manager. Commissioner Thompson?
Thank you, sir. Rather than expand the committee, there are a couple of other options that occur to me, because I agree with the points raised by Commissioner Webb about getting expert new voices, fresh energy, all good. Rather than expanding the size of the committee, if the committee could establish an ad hoc group and include the Astoria person, then you don't have to change the bylaws or anything like that. And it's always good to have an odd number of voters in case of conflicts. And it does correspond, as we've done with the Planning Commission members, to our districts, which is it keeps, I think, a sound structure in place. I absolutely support including the Astoria representative. I mean, if push comes to shove, does the Astoria member, I'm cautious about saying this. Does the Astoria member wish to continue to serve? Because maybe they're ready to be done and would cede their seat. I don't know anything at all about it. I would just consider that as an option to ask. I prefer keeping the size of the committee small and stable and inviting new talent in and using them in a way that forwards the work. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner
And,
Thompson.
you know, during our last master plan, we did have like a master plan task force, which was like 15 people. And so at that point, we could reach out and, you know, we would look for city parks. We could look, you know, last time we had national parks involved, we had state parks involved. We had representatives from other local, like the biking communities, the horse, you know, the private parks, you know. So yeah, that potential is still here for them to participate in the master plan process.
Thank you, Steve. Commissioner Webb? Oh, okay. Your hand was still up there. Any other comments? I think as the county manager suggested, we could put forward a name for the next meeting and make that appointment and then explore some of these alternatives and some of these other suggestions, recommendations that we've talked about today. So what I heard from the discussion is that we wanted to stick with Mike Hinton as the recommendation for this board, correct? And then look for ways to incorporate Tyler and others in the future.
Perfect.
Okay. Well, thank you, Steve. Appreciate all you
Thank
do.
you. Okay, thank
Have a
you.
good rest of your day.
You betcha. You too.
All right, next is a legislative update. Just trying to click to it there. Come on, we'll click to it.
I don't think there's an agenda bill for this one, Chair Quillen.
Okay.
So if I might, I'll just go ahead and.
Okay, County Manager.
Thank you,
Legislative
Chair.
update. Yep.
Thank you, Chair, members of the board. CFM wasn't able to join us this morning, so what I thought I would do is just kind of go through a little bit about how we are organized to support you and the county as we enter into the legislative session. As you know, Amanda plays kind of the point for staff as we are distilling all the bills, looking at which ones are the highest priorities for the county to be engaged with. And obviously we have high priority, medium, and then low. And we identify which ones we're just watching and then which ones that we might want to be advocating for. Part of what we had discussed in a previous board meeting was having regular legislative updates. So we have scheduled them for every work session. So that'll be 4 times a month that we will go ahead and set aside time to discuss various bills. I think that as we move forward, since this is all kind of new, we've done it a little bit every year, but I think we're getting a little bit better at it every year, kind of that coordinated muscle movement. But as your board identifies some of the topics or some of the bills that you might be interested in discussing as a group, if you could let me know that before the work session, then I can make sure that I have the appropriate staff available to really go through that. As you can imagine, there's a lot of bills that relate to very specific areas, including community development, law enforcement, juvenile justice, general government finance issues. And so if you have a bill that you're interested in, just let me know and we'll have the right folks in the room to really have that conversation. Part of the work of CFM and staff is to really prioritize those bills that the majority of the board supports and oftentimes some that the county opposes. And so CFM is really wired to do the same thing in close concert with the county, with your board. We know that there's going to be some topics that your board is going to be wanting to testify on, and we have staff who will help prepare testimony, help schedule testimony, and support your board's efforts as we move those interfaces forward. So right now, your board has received a lot of information, I'm sure, and there's thousands of bills that have been dropped. I think they have until February 25th, if I'm not mistaken, to drop those bills. And so it's going to continually evolve over the next several weeks, and we are going to track them to the best of our abilities. But right now we're in the very early stages. There are some already that we are very supportive of, like TLT, and there are some that we aren't as excited about. And if you look at the summary pages, we have those laid out for you. So at this point, Amanda's here, and she's available. But if there's any bills that your board would like us to try to discuss today or to bring back at the next work session, with the support of staff, that would be great. So I'll just open it up to your board if you have any direction for staff.
Yeah, thank you, County Manager. I see that Commissioner Webb has a question.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Amanda and I got over busy or something last Friday and trying to connect about. I when I was in DC last year with our CFM guy, and one of them in DC, we talked. We visited all three of our representatives and senators. The workforce WIOA is WIOA. It's the reauthorization of basically the primary workforce development agencies throughout the country. And apparently I've spoken with one of the staff people in DC who said that things are so chaotic right now in both the House and the Senate that it's really difficult. There are apparently not even the Senate has been so embroiled in the approval of proposed cabinet members that there's not a lot of activity going on in the Senate committees. But I wanted to just signal our CFM people in DC to watch the WIOA reauthorization when it happens, when it it's, you know, am I correct, Amanda, that you don't follow the DC happenings the way you do in Salem right now? I mean, I don't know how you could.
I mean,
you know,
I will respond, Chair, Wheeler, members of the board, Commissioner Webb. We have regular meetings with our DC lobbyists, but as you've said, there's just a lot happening back there, and they have a major effort between now and March to get a budget reconciliation bill. And so there's a lot of efforts on that front right now, and just a lot of other things happening with the administration. And so we do monitor that, and as soon as there's movement on some legislation back there, then we will be sure to also fold in the federal lobbyists into your board's discussions. It's just they're at a very different place right now than the state.
Right. I just don't want it to slip by us, because it's a really important piece of legislation, and with all the chaos, it's just hard to follow. I really like Amanda's reports. They're really, really useful. I really appreciate them, and it saves me a whole lot of time. and so thank you very much. I think they're great.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Webb. Amanda, our management and policy analyst, do you have anything you'd like to add or say at this time?
I don't have anything to add. This is just, your feedback is always helpful.
And we do appreciate all you're doing and your coordination with our CFM advocates team and your reports to us. So thank you so much. Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What I'm trying to figure out is how do our efforts at the county coordinate with what AOC and LOC are doing at the state? I work a lot with the other county commissioners and judges and chairs at AOC through that committee structure, those 5 policy committees. I mean, that's why I talk about governance and revenue, because being co-chair of that is one of 5 around the state. But I attend the other meetings. What I'm not clear on, how do we at Clatsop County share information about our positions? Because I haven't done that. I've talked about statewide things. I've talked about good governance and all of that. I haven't advocated particular Clatsop County commissions, positions rather, for the most part. So that coordination, and I had a request. I wanted a meeting with, set up with Rep. Bowman. I want to talk about good governance, because that's part of the larger purview of the Governance and Revenue Committee. We've got specific revenue bills before it, but governance as a significant policy issue that impacts the efficiency and effectiveness, the credibility of government all over Oregon, that's what I'm an advocate for. So how do I coordinate all of that with what we're doing at Clatsop County with or without CFM? Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. I think it's important that the commission speak as a majority and as a group. I think we work very closely with our county manager and we work with our CFM advocates, but we are speaking on behalf of the commission. And I think we need to make sure that we're all coordinated in what our requests are and who we want to meet with. Commissioner Webb.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure it's appropriate for me. Commissioner Thompson, were you at the beginning of a thread there, or?
I'm just trying to
speak-
figure out how to be effective. I understand speaking with one voice, but since I've been at AOC for over 10 years, Clatsop County hasn't been much involved. There has been an evolution of the involvement of Clatsop County. So I'm not clear on what the chair is saying. I think there's a lot of conversations that we should be having. That's why I've been pleading, encouraging, requesting a board retreat so that we could talk about our role as commissioners, so we could talk about the role of the chair, so we could talk about our liaison assignments, so I could talk about the integration of the work we do with our liaison assignments with the work of the other board members and the staff. I've been waiting a long time. So I have work I want to do, work that I am requested to do in my other roles. I'm trying to include Clatsop County, but frankly, I'm baffled as to how to do that effectively.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Commissioner Webb, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I did. Something very important. I spoke with the sheriff briefly and have had some email communication about some kind of a response to the TLT discussions that are going on. And at one point, I was actually preparing an op-ed to send to the local papers. And I think it was in conversation with Don. I'm not sure how all this worked, but it seemed like a good idea to maybe have the sheriff do it. I've spoken with the sheriff, who suggested that maybe something that was signed by Clatsop, Tillamook, and Lincoln County, those 3 sheriffs, that would be, because I'm getting a lot of pushback from the OCVA, the Oregon Visitors Association, that includes the whole coast, which is funded, of course, by Travel Oregon dollars. And because they put out a very I thought, a very negative and a very, very negative uh, 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 um, piece that I don't know the extent to which it's been circulated, but it certainly went to all the all the people on the ACFA list. And that was very, I thought, very brief and not very insightful about the claims that were being made about our problems with the funding of TLT. And so I'm hoping that at some point we can get together with the other two sheriffs and put something together. I think that should be somewhat of a priority for us. And Amanda and I started a conversation about it last Friday, and it got too late, and I'm sorry, Amanda, I haven't gotten back to you about it. I hope that we can proceed. I hope that we can come up with something that all three sheriffs would be willing to sign that could go to the Oregonian, actually. I think is the place that this needs to be, and to other local papers. Because we have some awfully good numbers. We have some awfully good information about the impact of tourism, particularly at the law enforcement and at the emergency response level. And I think we need to be talking about that. So that's who I want to hear from. Thanks,
Yeah.
Don.
And Commissioner Webb, I agree with you. I think we had a really good outlining of the issue at our last commission meeting, where the sheriff talked about those numbers and gave great detail about the need. And so if there is an opportunity for us to make that argument at the state level and make it locally, I welcome it. County Manager had something you want to say. County Manager?
Chair Quayler, members of the board, there's been a lot of going back and forth with both Tillamook and Lincoln County as they continue to provide some of the data that the sheriff's office here in Clatsop County has already organized. And so that work has been continuing. Amanda's been involved in taking this disparate data and then presenting it in a cogent way so that it can be used in as meaningful of a messaging effort as we can. I think that the sheriff has been networking with his counterparts, and I think the only question is just timing, and it'll be making sure that all the data is compiled to tell the most compelling story. I think it was interesting that part of what ACFA's information really was that, hey, there's a lot of counties that have pre-2003 TLT, which was not restricted by the 70-30 formula. So the 2003 prior was completely discretionary. I think the part that we always talk about is, every county is different. And here within Clatsop County, the only TLT that Clatsop County had, cities had their own, but Clatsop County, the only TLT we had prior to the 1% that was countywide that was approved in 2018 was the unincorporated rates. We weren't collecting anything. And when you look at the impacts of tourism on county services, a lot of those county services are impacted by folks that are staying in cities. And so having that countywide rate is really important because cities and folks that are visiting cities need to contribute to some of those countywide functions. And obviously the most obvious is the jail. We are receiving folks in the jail from all over the county, and cities right now are not contributing to those costs, meaning that folks that are staying in and recreating within cities. And so it is true that there are some counties that have had discretion, but every county is different, and there's no relationship with what's being collected in right now and what the impacts are on the expenditure side.
Right.
Because we have 30% that is going into discretionary spending that may equate to 2% of what our general fund expenditures are for public safety.
Right.
And again, we have never argued, nor would I, that we're going to identify dollar for dollar revenues to cover the impacts of tourism, because we would need other revenue sources to really make that happen. We can't put all the burden just on the TLT. That's just, I mean, just the pure economics of it wouldn't work. But at the same time, when we're spending a lot of money on the 70% of the TLT, which for the county, just on the 1%, we are getting approximately $600,000 that is discretionary and 1.4 million that is tourism dedicated. Those are the issues we continually talk about, is that it's just not in the right ratios about where the money's going. And so, to have more flexibility and to include a definition of public safety in those tourism promotion, tourism facilities would allow us to then redirect some of that money into those priority areas, while the county is always going to spend, I mean, with your board's agreement, the county is always going to support the tourism industry. It's just right now there's so much money being put into that pot that everybody's having a hard time spending it. And so I just think every county is different. And I always go back to the reality that there's 3 or 4 counties, all coastal, that are just more impacted than anybody else. And so I think that the sheriff and I have spoken to, and I know Commissioner Webb has, and we will be working on that. We're just kind of waiting for all the data to be finalized from the other counties. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, County Manager. Commissioner Webb?
Yeah, I have one other issue, and it's the same issue, is that I think that we shouldn't just talk about the jail. I think that we should also talk about the fact that, and I think, I know this is true in all 3 North Coast counties, that we have highway issues that are very important outside of our cities. And it just in the last few days, with all of the conversation that's been going on about accidents, there have been, of course, tremendous accidents especially on 30 and on 26. And the data that we know that we do have about the necessity for the sheriff to respond to all of those balance of county, unincorporated parts of the county, that 30 and 26 are really, really a large part of, and how difficult it is to get his folks, kind of all over the county. And I think that that's because of our highway system, of course, our U-shaped highway. It isn't so much an issue on 101, but it's a huge issue. And unfortunately, Route 30 and 26 are the ones that get high and icy and snowy when the weather's bad. And of course, increases accidents. So I hope that we don't just talk about the jail issues, but the highway patrol issues are also really, really big for the sheriff's department. So I hope we include those because I think that's an important, huge part, of course, of their service, because everybody who winds up in a city comes here either from Route 30 or Route 26. And so it's those people as well. I just hope that we can remember to tell that part of the story. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Webb. I see Commissioner Wakua. You're on mute.
Sorry, how about now? So at our last meeting, we did hear the sheriff, and he spoke about our increase of activity of non-resident people. And I was just curious, is there any data on the number, that influx that has to do with people that are same day visitors, or for example, when we look at like, you know, I know Walmart has a significant impact to our local community as well. And, you know, theft and things like that, that has consequence to our local public safety. Is there any data that suggests what impact those numbers are contributing to this influx?
I think, Chair Quayler, members of the board, I think we'd have to have the sheriff and even city law enforcement weigh in on that a little bit. I think we do have numbers about the folks that are day visitors, and we have numbers about overnight visitors, but I haven't seen any, and I think I'd have to defer to the sheriff on some of the other impacts that are seen, like some of the theft issues in some of the large stores.
Amanda, our management policy analyst. Amanda?
Yeah, thank you. If I may, and the data that Don is referring to, that is from Travel Oregon. So that's the data that we've used, and then the data that the sheriff has is separate from that. But yeah.
Thank you, Amanda. Commissioner Thompson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I hope that we also include information about the volunteer firefighters all over our county. And that's 101 and 20, all over in rural Oregon, because they are volunteers. And if we can get money for them to support their governance and their execution, that's very important. Thanks.
Agreed. Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. County Manager.
Chair Quayler, members of the board, I just wanted to just reaffirm for everybody that in the LOC draft legislation, it does include community infrastructure, and it includes public safety, and public safety is certainly more than the jail. It's all of the law enforcement pieces, from patrol to the jail to search and rescue. It also includes EMS. It includes rural fire. So it includes the whole apparatus, which is, you know, what you would really see as the first response, going through criminal justice system, going through, you know, incarceration, if that's part of it. So it's that whole continuum of really first response. And so all of that would be included. And in the LOC bill, in addition to the public safety part, is also that community infrastructure piece, which includes roads and sewer, water. So.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, County Manager. Any other questions on the legislative update? Thank you very much, Amanda.
Thank you.
We'll move on to the draft amendment to the board rules, social media guidelines, page 12. County Manager.
Chair Quayler, members of the board, as you're aware, the rules that really inform how the board communicates to the public are continually evolving, and a lot of the evolution comes from the courts as the courts weigh in on how elected officials communicate to the public. And so given all of that, the county staff has been working on a draft amendment to the board rules, dealing specifically with social media guidelines. This is on page 13 in your packets for the work session. There are really three types of communication that the board may participate in. One is obviously personal. It's okay for your board to maintain personal social media. The only thing and the only caveat with that is that if you use it to also do county business, it's likely that that site would be viewed by the courts as an official county site. So, you know, what I would suggest is the board doesn't, you know, kind of mix your personal sites with your official sites, because then anything on that personal site would then be subject to the same rules that an official site would. So that would creates some complications likely for you. The other is the board members can have a campaign site, and I think many of your board members have during the campaign season. Those sites typically don't have the same rules because it's not an official site of the county. It's not a personal site. It's a campaign site that is usually for a limited duration. Once the campaign's over, those sites either become dormant to be used again, or they become personal sites, and they just transition out of the public space. The third one, though, is the official one, and that is the official platform for sharing information and communicating as an independently elected commissioner. These sites are typically administered by the board members, but there would be staff technical assistance provided. But these are sites that would have to be branded as an official site of the county. So when you're doing county work in the social media realm, if it's county related, then they need to be branded as a county site. And so then once they're branded, then obviously we have to comply with all the federal, state, and local laws, which includes public records, copyright, retention, fair use, all those kinds of different requirements. And then obviously how we communicate, meaning maintaining professionalism, maintaining engagement while still, avoiding, personal attacks and all those types of activities is all part of it. These are considered, the official sites are considered, limited public forum sites, which means they're generally available for the public to interface with their government, but they're limited in the sense that there are certain rules. So people can't be inappropriate, they can't do illegal things on the site. And so the county would be managing that through county council, some basic parameters of fair, appropriate interface with the official site. So I just wanted to present this as an option for your board. I think getting clarity on this would serve your board well. A lot of what we do on the risk management side is to make sure that there's policies and procedures in play that reduces your risk as a public official. And so that's part of what this framework is. It's not very long, but I think it's sufficient to protect you from potential complaints or lawsuits as we navigate the social media world. So I just wanted to present it, see if your board had any feedback for us. If your board is interested, we would bring it to a future board meeting for your consideration. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, County Manager. I think it makes a lot of sense to kind of clarify these basic, social media tools and to know exactly what's what. And I appreciate the effort to put in some guidelines here. Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with you. Guidelines are good. My question, this is a self-serving, sorry, my camera's acting up today. I can't fix it, so don't know. This is a self-serving question. If one of us misbehaves and is found liable, my assumption is the rest of us aren't part of that. That is only the commissioner who is found to have misbehaved that bears the consequences. Is that accurate, or are we collectively responsible if any or all of us are subject to violation or fines?
Chair Quila, if Anthony's on, I'm going to defer to Anthony on that one.
Yeah, it would be at the individual level. It would be the commissioner who was, caused the thing. It wouldn't be the whole board that would be liable for anything that the individual commissioner was doing that was improper or illegal.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. The second question, again, self-serving. I've been writing a newspaper column. My grandson says, Grandma, mostly you're telling people to be nice to each other, which is what I try and do, whether or not I'm successful. I assume that these policies relate only to social media because written media are already subject to other constraints or don't have the same risks. I don't know.
I think that's correct. I mean, what say you there, Anthony?
Yeah, I think this is kind of narrowly tailored to social media. It's kind of an emerging field, and the issues are still being kind of settled in the courts, what exactly is going to be allowed and not allowed. I think, yeah, doing newspaper articles or those type of things would be kind of outside the scope of this policy.
Well, thank you, because I always believe in finding out what the rules are and then following them, not asking for forgiveness afterward. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Commissioner Wakula?
Thank you, Commissioner, Chair, and thank you, County Manager. I just wanted to say that I appreciate this coming into this role, being able to see guidelines like this and being able to navigate worlds, put information out there, which I think is important for especially somebody like me being new to this. So I just wanted to say I appreciate seeing this and the energy that's gone into this. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wakula. Any other comments, questions? I think it makes a lot of sense. Yep.
Okay, Chair, further members of the board, we will go ahead and bring this back to your board for consideration at a future date. So
Great. Thank you, County Manager. Well, that exhausts our agenda. So we are done for the day. We have our regular meeting next Wednesday. And not seeing anything else, we'll go ahead and adjourn. Have a great rest of your Wednesday. We'll see ya.